Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share contemplative focus with you today. And the focus I wanted to share with you today is how do we identify with illusion? The busy mind that incessantly thinks is the default negative polarity of the human experience. It's what we all experience without any effort whatsoever. So, unless a conscious effort is made, the mind will create beliefs that the thinker will identify with, even if those beliefs are totally insane. And this is what we're seeing today in the world that we live in its intense and, and growing fragmentation, where the negative polarity is reaching a peak in its intensity and strength. And this is a normal cycle for polarized experience on this planet and in human experience. And it's necessary because oftentimes, without the experience of intense, insane beliefs that we totally buy into, we cannot fulfill our experience in illusion, which we have to do before we can start moving towards truth, to start developing the power that we have within us to be truthful and to grow our awareness and to create a positive, loving state of being that is a constant with our experience. So that's just a cycle of human experience that goes on and on and on, and we're reaching a peak period right now where this world, anyway, is beginning to shift its focus more towards the positive, entering into a new era where people will be more aware and more loving. And anyway, so the identification with illusion simply comes because our mind thinks this and thinks that, and it's fear based without any kind of conscious intervention. It just keeps growing in strength with that theme. And wherever you are, however that shows up, is where you're going to start identifying with it. It's your reality. If you don't know anything else, then that becomes you. And that becomes a belief. And that belief appears to be real. I mean, after a while, you just don't doubt it anymore because it keeps coming to you over and over again. And that's what happens without any conscious intervention in our thinking. We start to think this and we think that, and pretty soon it builds a story, and the story is built on a negative dominant polarity. It's fear based, and sooner or later we buy into it and we're totally involved in this cause and that cause and so forth and so on. And look at the world today, and there's so many examples of extremes in this development. So when you're fulfilled in your experience, human experience, with the negative polarity, and you're evolving towards your truth, then you start to, people show up in your world, teachers show up in your world, and you start to question your reality. And oftentimes this is triggered by something very negative. Oftentimes what appears to be a really terrible experience in your experience, like a say an accident or something that you get physically incapacitated with for a while, and you have to start questioning if it's possible for you to heal yourself, like situations like that, or if you find yourself involved in relationships that and all of a sudden you realize that those relationships are just taking you down a negative path, and then you start to question these and try to get out of it before it gets too late for you. These kind of experiences bring us to a brink where we finally start to wake up to what's really going on. And if we're lucky, if we're fortunate enough to realize that we do have the power to change that belief or that reality that we have created, including our relationships, then we can take the reins of our mind and start to focus on something positive. And to repeat this day after day after day. We meditate, and when we're in meditation, we have a mantra, we have something positive about ourselves. I am source, I am the power, I am one and free, something like that, which is truth, our truth. We're creating our own reality. And this is the irony of everything here, because some teachers out there today are very actively turning people on to this reality that they were previously unaware of. And many people have been healed by themselves, the placebo effect, etc., etc. But they're creating it consciously because they've got somebody to teach them and guide them through the process. And this is a great example of what is possible when people stop thinking unconsciously, which is a big step in life. Most people just take their beliefs for granted, and to them that is the reality. And when that reality is challenged because somebody else has a reality that's opposite yours or different than yours, then conflict arises because it's all fear-based and it's based on uh, survival. So if that's what you're experiencing, and you feel that someone who lives close to you is a danger to your reality, well, there's a conflict, and somehow it has to be resolved. Hopefully without violence, but often it is with violence, which we're seeing all over the world today. And it's the mechanics of consciousness, really. If you believe something and you take it as truth without questioning it, then you're buying into an illusion. It doesn't really matter what that illusion is. It's an illusion because you don't really know it. You just believe it. This is the problem with belief, because it can go any direction and go to any depths of fragmentation that you let it go to. So if you're thinking, and you're thinking unconsciously, you're just letting things come into you, it's going to be a negative uh, experience for you. And oftentimes you're not even aware that it's negative because you're not aware of the thoughts. You're not really tracking the thoughts. You're not focusing on what you're thinking, what your mind is being filled with. And and on top of that, we have a lot of unconscious and subconscious programs that are running that we developed when we were growing up in this world, where we didn't know any of this. And so we just took on beliefs and identifications that were given to us by other people who were equally unaware. And then at puberty, these beliefs and stuff that we take on, these identifications that we have already created, they go into our unconscious and subconscious, where we can't access them without effort and without moving into a positive polarity consciously. And then they keep triggering things in us, and we don't know where the trigger comes from, but it just happens. And something will make us angry, something will make us fearful, and on and on and on it goes. And without a conscious intervention on your part, that's going to be your life and your reality. That's how we identify with illusion. It's so easy because it's the default dominant polarity in the human experience. When you're born, when you take form, that contraction in consciousness happens with a forfeiture of awareness. So you're born in a body and you come out, you're a child in a family, hopefully, and just by virtue of taking that form, your awareness of the truth of who you are is gone. You don't know who you are, and you're developing yourself with a lot of unconscious beliefs that have already been created and substantiated unconsciously. So whatever that belief may be will determine where you go unless you take a conscious effort to change that. And if you're not aware that you have that power, that you can change that, then you'll just go through life unconsciously like most people do, and whatever happens, happens. And it's all being orchestrated by consciousness. There's really not much choice in our life because we're here to have the experience that we're having. It's a simple truth. If you want to know what you're supposed to experience, look at what you're experiencing. Not that you can't make a conscious choice to alter that or augment that or change that with something more positive, but you can. But this requires a conscious effort, and it's not an easy thing to do because you have to consciously tell yourself your truth. I am source, I am one and free. You have to, every day, you need to repeat uh, phrases like that point to the truth of who you are to develop a state of being that is naturally supporting that truth. You replace the fear with love, and you learn to love. You bring your emotions into the picture along with the thought that you have consciously chosen. And when they come together, then the power in you starts to increase and until it's a palpable experience that you have on a daily basis. And then you continue that because it's so much better than being unconscious and negative. Who would want to go back, huh? So if you find yourself drifting into some negative habit, after a while you'll probably realize and wake up to the fact that that is limiting how strongly your state of being is. And you're forfeiting what's possible for you and unless you take the reins again and just focus on the positive and do mantras, do truthful statements to yourself, and choose to think consciously every day and every moment of your day. Ask yourself how much, tell yourself how much you love people in your life and how much you love your life and how much you love interacting in a conscious and loving way with other people so that you can help to uplift them as well. And when you start to give yourself to that positive focus and your actions and your beliefs start to become the same, then your state of being grows exponentially. And you start to really feel the truth of who you are. And when you feel the truth of who you are, when you get that palpable experience and it becomes a constant, then it's so much easier to think consciously and to be conscious in what you think and to choose what you want to think and choose what you will not think and what you will no longer entertain. And this is what I have experienced after many, many years here at Synchronicity. It was very challenging at first because I was, like most people, very negative. And facing that and admitting that and owning it is part of the process of growing out of that. So you realize, okay, I'm negative and I'm dealing with this, but all that negativity comes up to be released as you are focusing on the positive, and that process can be somewhat challenging in the emotions and sometimes physically, sometimes mentally, and oftentimes it's emotional. Are components of all three dimensions of our being, and you have to be willing to put yourself through a little effort and to just bear with it for a while so you can move yourself out of it and start to develop a constant positive experience for yourself. And once you get there, you will not want to go back. And you don't want anybody to, you don't want to create relationships with people who are negative because why would you do that if you're trying to be positive? And so you will attract positive people to you. You'll attract positive circumstances in your life and you'll see that the reality that you are creating is commensurate with what you are consciously thinking. And and then you're a conscious creator of your life, and from then on you can create a life that's much more loving as you become loving. It's just a reflection. There really is no world out there that isn't actively being augmented and created in here. We are only seeing a reflection of ourselves. We're seeing a reflection of where our feet are. And as this reflection keeps trying to teach us a lesson, so to speak, hopefully we will wake up enough to realize that that's what we're doing. And we're doing it. We have the power to create that reality, even if it's one that we don't like. And owning that power is the beginning of the changes that you can make. Once you own the power, once you realize that you are responsible for the reality you are creating, then you can choose to create a reality that is more loving and more conscious. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you make that choice? People do when they have that realization. And if they're not having a positive life, if they're still creating something negative, it's because they're not fulfilled in the negative polarity yet. And it's appropriate. All experience in this world is appropriate for those who are having it. So there's no judgment here. It's not like you're right or you're wrong because of what you're doing. It's simply to let you know that you can have a choice. You can make a choice. You just have to devote yourself to that choice and to become aware in it and to continue growing it until it's a constant in your life. You wake up, you're expanded, and you're aware and you're loving. And that's just your experience all day long. And when something negative comes into your mind, you know it immediately because the contrast is there, and you choose not to entertain that thought or belief. So we identify with illusion because that's all we know in the beginning of life. We identify with illusion because all the identifications that we have created in our young years become unconscious but active. And as we go through life and begin to uh, see ourselves reacting to people and situations without any choice, we like or dislike, we're upset, we love something that's not good for us, we get into relationships that are terrible, and so forth and so on. And then sooner or later, hopefully, we'll wake up to the fact that, hey, I chose that, I made that, I was attracted to that, it came into my life and I wanted it, and I got it, and then I hated it. So when you find yourself going through that kind of an experience, you must own the fact that there's still some unconscious programming in you that's active, and take more effort and devote yourself to more positive thinking, positive feeling, and meditate and just develop yourself in your state of being till you're free from it. It's a difficult and slow process, but it's the one investment you can make in your life that will go with you at the end of your human experience for this life. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you find some value in that. I certainly do because I have the experience of it. So anyway, I'll be back again next week with another contemplative focus to share with you. Thank you so much for being here and watching this today.